let's kick things off. So from the AP, the Trump administration is ordering 500 more National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. after the shooting of soldiers. Two West Virginia National Guard members who were deployed to the nation's capital were shot just blocks from the White House earlier today in a brazen act of violence. FBI Director Kash Patel and Washington Mayor said that the Guard members were hospitalized and in critical condition. The mayor also said that they were victims of a targeted shooting. Now, West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey initially said the troops had died, but now he has walked that statement back. So you might have seen some stuff on social media that was later retracted. His office is receiving conflicting reports, which is just odd in and of itself. The governor did not respond immediately to questions about the attack. Now, a suspect who was in custody was also shot, but had wounds that were not believed to be life-threatening. And they have not been able to speak publicly about much of that, other than I read that they did not have any identification on them. So following all of this, Desmond, the Trump administration has quickly ordered 500 more National Guard members to Washington following the shooting. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that Donald Trump told him to send extra soldiers. This is wild. This happened 2 blocks northwest of the White House. What did you make when you first heard this story?
Actually, I want to throw it right back to you. I want to know what you thought about it
Yeah,
when you first heard the story, because to be honest with you, I'm feeling really conflicted about how this story looks and the details that we have. So, like, what were your thoughts? Because you brought the story to the group.
sure. No, I appreciate that. I have to tell you, I was at first like, oh wow, this happened. I would think expect something like this to happen because of the level of gun violence in our nation. But then so I posted about it, and this
Yeah.
was at the point where we thought that the soldiers, the National Guard members, had died. But then when the governor of West Virginia walked it back, I started seeing a lot of people that were really pissed off, like a lot of creators online, because they had all made these videos, pushed them out to their audiences, and then they were all retracting them, and they were angry that they had been sharing what they felt was false information with their audience. And a lot of creators like you and myself that consider themselves to be reputable and independent journalists, we're trying to not be promoting disinformation or misinformation, right? So then my brain went to more of a nefarious place. I'm like, well, who told the governor of West Virginia this information in the first place? Why is he walking it back? And why are they now putting 500 more troops near the White House when it seems to be that, to me, they should be kind of holding things back until they actually understand what's going on, considering we don't know who the shooter is? This is all feeling a little like I could go down a conspiracy rabbit hole really quickly and start thinking about, false flag operations and what is Pete Hegseth and Trump really up to. And I'm trying to withhold that kind of energy because we still have such little credible information. And it just shows you we can't trust the White House or what's coming out of the White House. So it's all very concerning to me. What do you think?
There's just not enough information for this story.
Yeah.
You don't know who the shooters are.
Mm-hmm.
The shooter it was. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know motivation. You don't know the circumstances around why this took place. You don't know anything that could have led up to this moment as far as like, where was this? What was happening between these two people? So it just leaves so many questions. We do know that the National Guard wasn't supposed to be in DC in the first place. A federal judge already said that the deployment to
Mm-hmm.
DC was illegal. So the entire story kind of just has me left in a place of what is this story? Because until
Right.
we know more, it's hard to kind of come out and say it would be really easy. This is something that happens on the right. The right will take a story and without any information whatsoever, they will blitzkrieg the hell out of it,
That's
create
right.
their own narratives, and just like jam it down your throat. It would be really easy to do that in this moment, but I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
I think this story just falls like squarely into the place of we don't have any information yet. But I will say that it shouldn't have happened in the first place. The
Mm.
National Guard shouldn't be in Washington, D.C. in the first place. Donald Trump knows that. He does not care. His administration flagrantly violates federal orders by these judges. There's no repercussions for it. Our democracy is in a weird place right now. And by weird, I mean it's falling off a cliff
Mm.
because we have an executive branch that does not care about checks and balances. Because if they did, this National Guard member, these two National Guard members wouldn't have been shot today because they wouldn't have been in Washington, D.C. in the first place.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think what concerned me most about this story was how quickly they decided to deploy 500 more National Guard members when they're not releasing information. We don't know what happened. We don't know the circumstances. So to me, it just feels like they're ramping up the tension without a clear indication as to why. That, to your point, what frustrates me the most about what's going on in DC in particular, in the West Wing, in the Pentagon, is this lack of transparency and accountability. And so when I think you have those issues plus this ramped up tension between the civilian population and this National Guard presence, to your point, that shouldn't be there. There is blood on a lot of their hands at this point, meaning the people within the Trump regime. And that, Desmond, leads me into the second part of this, which is the response from people
Yeah.
has been exactly what you said. A lot of outlets are saying Trump is blamed for this. He put them there. That has been sort of the sensibility all over the fact that these National Guard members are highly visible, and that there's already all of this anxiety. Al Sharpton commented on this, and he said two people that are fighting for their lives, guardsmen that the president put there. That's what he told MS Now. But to your point, we don't have a lot of information on this, but I do think this was an important breaking news story that needed to be touched upon so we could, in some ways, get ahead of the misinformation that was already coming out. And I wanted to make sure to clarify that we don't, as of this moment, still know what is going on with those two members of the National Guard.
Yeah, one thing I just want to close out by saying is that, some
Yeah.
people might find it to be unfair that Donald Trump will be blamed for something like this. And I would just say that let's just remind ourselves about how the Republicans and their media apparatchiks, treated the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Mm.
They basically crucified Joe Biden for the
Yeah.
fact that 13 service members lost their lives upon the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So they were trying to set the precedent that when members of our military
Yeah.
happen to fall under any circumstances, it is the direct fault of the president of the United States. And so by applying their own logic here, it is Donald Trump's fault that those two people got shot today.
Look, you're just calling it like it is. I mean, you're just playing within the framework that they set. It's just they don't
Yeah.
like it when it doesn't apply to them. They're just so hypocritical with their own words and ideas on these things. So yeah.
The truth, if Joe Biden is responsible for those people being killed in Afghanistan, then Donald
Uh-huh.
Trump is responsible for people being shot in Washington, D.C. It's the same logic. It has to be applied both ways at the end.
Well, Blonde Legally also agrees with you. She says 100, 100, 100. So you definitely have your fans out there agreeing tonight.
Thank you.
So Desmond, uh,
Yes.
talk to me. What else has been going on? Because it's been interesting watching basically MAGA implode over on X, formerly known as Twitter.
So Elon Musk over on his, propaganda app, he released the new location feature, which allowed you to see where accounts are actually based out of. Now, this allowed for several like really prominent MAGA accounts to be exposed for being in places like Nigeria, in oh my God, I'm blanking here. In
Russia,
Russia,
Israel, Macedonia.
exactly. I was like, there's another one in the Middle East. That's
Yeah.
India, Bangladesh. That's what I was going to think
Yes.
of. Yes, Bangladesh was the one I was kind of getting stuck on there. So it was very much exposed very quickly that the MAGA, America First movement is actually very rarely in America whatsoever, which is honestly humiliating for Republicans, for the MAGA right, because they keep talking about how like their movement is growing and more people are
Hmm.
catching on to their ideology, and look how many people are posting about this, sharing about this, commenting on this, so on and so forth. And I'd have to say it's probably really embarrassing to be a Republican right now this week after all of that was exposed. I personally could not get over just how hilarious the entire story was. After the backlash, within a couple of hours, Elon Musk actually removed the feature. It says he might have turned it back on. I haven't gone to double check that. But before I get into all the hilarity as far as what I perceived the story to be, Natalie, what was your reaction when you saw that America First is actually Bangladesh first?
I actually kind of breathed a sigh of relief because, you're not supposed to feed the trolls or feed the bots, but I get so many nasty America First style people,
Yeah.
commenting in my DMs, just saying really gross things. I was like, oh, thank God. Most of those are probably not even real humans. They were just there to try to create a sense of, panic and anxiety in me. And it didn't really work because luckily I have friends like you that ground me and we talk about these things where it's like, these things aren't as real as you think. But I do think it was inevitable that Elon Musk was going to blow up his own experiment because he's completely incompetent and a true failure and a loser. And so I was just happy to see it. It was sort of like, if you celebrate Christmas, it was like a little Christmas came early this year for me. So it
Yeah.
felt good. But we have a comment from Blonde Legally. She says, these go to prove that the most mediocre among us fail upwards to power. And ain't that the truth? It's like, what the hell? If you do these kinds of things, you get $1 trillion buyout or whatever from your companies. But
Yeah.
no, I think on the flip side of it, yes, it is hilarious. And also it did make me chuckle. But I will say then how I started to feel was incredibly angry because we all know how media is being used to manipulate people and influence people. And I think it's very clear that there has been interference in our democratic process through these bots and
Yeah.
through a lot of these more nefarious characters online. And sometimes if you are a person who maybe is more of a follower mindset and you have these thoughts and then you see them being amplified, you might think that more people feel this way too. And it emboldens you to behave or to act a certain way in your life, whereas these were not real people. And so the thing that concerns me most is how did this impact the 2016 and 2020 election cycles? How did it impact this last election cycle? And where do we go from here? What are the safeguards we're going to put in place? I can't even tell you, some of these senators and congressmen don't even know how to use their own email. So how are we going to get them to sign on to generative AI regulation and social media guardrails? I don't know.
They're not going to.
Right. Right. The short answer, everybody.
They're not going to.
Right.
I have 4 points here. I will make
Tell
them
me.
very quick. One, the first thing that comes to my mind is I've always downplayed the importance of X in and of itself.
Mm,
Because how many people in your life do you know use that app on a
yeah.
regular basis?
Right.
Like, I don't know anyone personally
Mm-hmm.
outside of like my professional contacts, but like all of my
Mm-hmm.
friends and family, none of these people actually use this account ever. So
Right.
I've always downplayed the significance of like what actually happens on this app. But the second thing I will say is this is humiliating for the Republicans in general because they have been touting all of these different,
Mm-hmm.
like posts on that platform talking about how much their ideology is growing. And it's all astroturf. It really is. It's so
Yeah.
completely fake. We are talking about just so many different bot farms, so many different just like rage bait accounts. Like these are
Mm-hmm.
paid actors in other countries who are pushing up this information. But the problem that lies is just how intertwined that platform is with journalism in general. And so you have so many independent and mainstream journalists who still use that platform exclusively and first of all to disseminate the news. They see all of that crap and then they perceive it as real life. And then they slant their news coverage based on that.
That's right.
So that is really the big deal for me here is that, like you were saying before, like how much has this impacted our elections? How much does this impact our everyday lives? Like
Yeah.
these bot farms are actually influencing the journalists who are then turning around and giving us the news.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a mass exodus again from that app. Not just obviously, a lot of us have already left. We need
Mm-hmm.
more people to leave. I also want to shame people who are still there. Don't
Right.
post there. Don't even go
Mm-mm.
get your information from there. Like, we need to just cage that app off completely. It needs to just be thrown to the dustbin of history. Elon Musk, let his bots run free. Let's all get the hell out of there. Um, the
Amen.
last thing I want to say here about this is that I actually don't hold anything against the people who are doing this over in other
Mm-mm.
countries because a
Mm-mm.
lot of Elon gives incentives for going viral on his app. He
Yeah.
pays money. And a lot of these people are in these, developing nations who don't make that much money. And so for them, getting a few $1,000s here and there is actually a really big deal. And so they had every incentive in the world to try to go out there and just post all this stuff, knowing that Elon was then turning around and pushing right wing content on his account. So it was probably a huge boon for these people in these different countries. So I hold nothing against them. I hold everything against Elon, who he turned this feature on for us to see. He's been able to see it all along. He
Mm.
always knew this was the case. So
Yeah.
why he decided to show it to all of us now, who knows? But he has always had access to the information. He always has known that this was the case. So um, Elon Musk should be deported.
Oh, dude, you just read my mind. I was just thinking that. I'm like, I'm like, not only should he be deported, but like, where's ICE when you need him? I mean, it's just like the whole situation is just he is very anti-American in what he does. And I'll go a step further with what you said because I agree. I don't blame people doing what they need to do to survive in the capitalist hellscape that the United States has helped orchestrate all around the world. Like
Yeah,
a lot of these countries that are in the state that they're in are in that space because of poor policy that the United States has implemented overseas to keep certain countries down so that we can exploit them for their goods and take their natural resources. And so
absolutely.
what do you expect and their labor? Yes. So what do
Yeah,
you expect? You're going to do what you need to do to survive. Once again, I was just talking with my mom about this. We were discussing the difference between blaming the individual for an issue versus blaming a system. I blame a system. In this case, I blame end stage capitalism, and I do blame an individual. And you're right, it is Elon Musk. So we
it's
can
wrong.
we can have both in this scenario for sure.
Yeah. So no, I really wanted to bring this all up because it kind of I felt really vindicated
Yeah.
because I spent so much time over the last couple of years saying this to anyone who would listen. I was like, just stop engaging with these people, stop
Hmm.
engaging with the trolls. There's a good chance they're just not people at all. And people would actually look at me as if I was crazy. They were like, no, Desmond, like I need to have these good conversations. This is a chance for me to like reach out to other people and try to like just reach across and try to like find common ground. I'm like, you're not talking to a person. You are not talking to a
Right.
person.
Right. Not the way you think you are. Yeah.
All right,
Mhm.
so please, for the love of God, if you haven't already gotten on this train now, please, I mean, before, get on this train now. Like, if you
It's
see
time.
someone who being overly just like obnoxious in a comment section, leave it alone. There is a
Yeah.
very strong chance that is not a real human. Just
Yep.
leave it alone.
Amen to that. Uh, Speaking of humans that are causing problems, going back to Trump, this was an interesting article from AL.com, which is Alabama's newspaper. Uh,
Yeah,
Trump's, which I was telling Desmond, I always love a local paper and I always love to read a paper in a red state that is about an issue that is against the state itself in a sense. So this one says Trump's approval rating collapsing among key groups. The quote is, they despise him at this point, which was just talk about a good headline, you guys. I'm like, Trump's approval rating is in the dumps because of collapsing support among independents. And the numbers are foreboding for Republicans in the 2026 midterms, according to CNN's chief data analysis, or excuse me, analyst. He says, I would say probably the worst 10-day period for the president in the polls in his entire second term. The numbers are just atrocious. His name is Harry Enton, he said during CNN News Central. In November, the president's net approval rating in several polls ranged from a best of -14 in the Marquette University Law School survey to a -26 in the Associated Press poll, but it has gotten worse since. There are actually 7 different polls now that are showing this incredibly abysmal nosedive, sort of how crypto was taking a nosedive and they lost all
yeah.
that money. It's like happening at the same time. So yeah, when I saw this, I was like, ooh, I really want to talk about this, not so much about the poll itself, because, polls are polls, but really I wanted to discuss what the issues are that you think might be causing people to abandon ship, so to speak. Does this have to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene deciding she was walking away? Does this have to do with the economy? Does this have to do with ICE? Like when you look at the landscape right now and you see all of the things that are happening, do you think there's any one thing that stands out, or do you think it's more of like a a, a collective of all of the insanity? What were your thoughts when you saw this headline?
it's always the economy first. Like always. I mean, like there's so many different things around the edges. People are going to be upset
Yeah.
about ICE. People are going to be upset about the Epstein files. People are going to be upset about him being more engaged with Israel, going into other countries like Venezuela, Iran. Like there's always going to be different factors, but it
Yeah.
starts with the economy. He sold everybody on a lie because he is able to influence people's minds in ways that don't make any sense to me. But he was able to
Mm,
convince millions of people in this country that I had you on track before COVID. COVID wasn't my fault. That's what I'm selling you on. And that was a
mhm,
powerful narcotic for a
mm,
lot of people who
mm.
don't tune into the news that much. There is an overwhelming majority of people in our country who tune into the news for approximately maybe 5 minutes a day at the most. They have a very small understanding of what goes on in the news because they don't want to interact with it. And that's fair, but this is
Mhm.
also the repercussions of that. The
Yeah.
repercussions is you get very bite-sized explanations for really important nuanced topics and you make really important decisions based on your lack of information. And Trump is always able to cut through to those people. He's able to tell them, hey, in my first term, you had more money, which was true, but it had
Mhm.
nothing to do with him. And
Right.
so he was able to convince millions of people to go out and vote for him in 2024 after Kamala Harris made the mistake of saying, I'm not going to fundamentally change anything if I become
Dude,
president,
I'll never let it
which
go.
which is an amazing thing to say in that moment. Uh, so yeah, now a lot of people are waking up to the fact that they don't have any more money, that they actually have even less money than they did a year ago,
Yeah.
that grocery prices have still gone up, that housing prices have still gone up, that their utility bills are now going up, that all the things they want to buy for the holidays are going up, that air traffic is actually going up. And yeah, they're kind of realizing that they've been conned all in one shot. So yes, there's always going to be probably at like 27, 28% of people that are with Trump no matter what because they are in the cult.
Yeah.
But I think that the people who aren't in the cult, but they did vote for Trump, they're falling off. And I think it's actually going to continue.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, I know what you're saying, like the economy is always the number one thing. I guess I'm an idealist in that way. And I'm always like, I wish it wasn't always the number one thing that people cared about because we just
I
wouldn't
wish.
be I wish, right? Because it's like we wouldn't be in this situation if we just took a step back and stopped worrying so much about like our own pocketbooks. And I say that because I think about those people that I knew when I was younger that always said that they were uh, socially liberal and fiscally conservative. And those people pissed me off more than anybody that I knew because it was this idea that I can say I support equal rights and LGBT rights and, racial equity, but when it comes to my taxes and what I give my money to and how I spend my money, I don't actually want those things to fund that. And to me, that's where that mentality has sort of brought us, Desmond. This idea that you're right. I mean, the economy is the number one thing, but maybe if people actually cared more about each other in how that works, we wouldn't be in this mess because we would have robust public services, we'd have robust social safety nets, and we wouldn't be feeling the house collapsing on itself. And so this sentiment of I just never want to hear anybody say that to me again because I'm not 26 anymore and I will rip your head off. And that's where we're at today. you know? Just
It's
saying.
it is an unfortunate thing, and I also agree. I wish it wasn't just the economy, and I think it's not just that, but I think
Right.
if you were to ask people, and what's the first thing that comes to your minds? Like I think the
Hmm.
cost of living is gonna be the first thing that comes to people's minds.
Yeah.
It's it's one of the first things that comes to my mind. And I'm
Sure.
also somebody who really cares about what's happening with ICE. I really care about what's happening in Gaza. I care about what's happening in Venezuela. I care about what's happening with the EPA and with CDC and
Yeah.
what's happening to our education system right now, being destroyed by the WWE queen. I mean, like we are in the bad place.
Um,
But like, it's hard to at the same time when you have so many people living paycheck to paycheck in in this country. You have what, over 60% of people who that's their reality, and mostly people are living in in the poverty line right now, as we just saw the new reports about how
oh,
the actual poverty line is like under 100 and like what 30,000 or something
yeah, it
to
was
that
like
effect.
125.
Right. So it's hard to care about all of those other things as a primary force
Hmm.
when your house is kind of like well, it's underwater, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
You got to pay the bills. If you don't have a house to live in, then it's hard to care about everything else after that. So, I mean, you got to take care of that first and foremost.
And I think that's where they get you, because if they keep you broke and they keep you underwater, you can't connect all the dots and take that mental time to understand what's going on. And to your point, that's the point. I mean, they want us broke, sick, and uneducated, because that's how you can contain the masses and keep control. You had mentioned Venezuela,
Yeah.
and there's an interesting little story coming out of that area of the world. I'd love for you to share with everyone what you uncovered today.
What was the congresswoman's name again?
Salazar, Representative Salazar from Florida.
Representative Salazar from Florida's 27th district
Hmm.
went on to Fox Business just a couple days ago and said that going into Venezuela is probably inevitable because the oil companies are going to make so much money from the oil reserves down there. There's about $1 trillion worth of assets, all the dividends, like they're going to be able to go down there and fix all the oil lines. So she directly came on to Fox Business and said that we are going to go in there to get the oil. Now, I have to say, maybe this next part is me nitpicking a little bit,
Ooh.
but at least George Bush felt the need to give us a real lie. You know, he really tried. He gave us the weapons of mass destruction. He went with the yellow cake route. He had Colin Powell speak in front of the United Nations. Like they really Donald Rumsfeld went out there and talked to the press and said, like, hey, Saddam Hussein is a bad person. He's connected to 9/11 somehow. Like, okay, to be fair, it was some of the laziest lying on earth, but at least they tried. Trump is not even trying. And
No.
you know what? I think it speaks, unfortunately, to how far gone his base is because
Yeah.
he knows he doesn't have to.
Mm.
And I think for me, that's the most chilling part of all of this is because he knows he has such a grip on these people that he can be
Yeah.
outed as a pedophile, that he can be outed as a total loser and a failure, and he can be outed as somebody who doesn't care about peace after running as the pro peace president. And none of it matters. He really is untouchable with these people because they see him as like some deity figure. So yeah, he can have his people go on cable news and say we are invading a country to get their oil, and he doesn't feel like there's going to be any repercussions. And the rest of us are sitting here asking ourselves, what the hell is going on in our country?
Can you imagine like your deity is like a spray tanned, real estate agent from the 80s that like wears a diaper now and can't string a sentence? Come on, everybody. Pull it together. God. No,
It's so pathetic.
it's
It
so
really
pathetic.
it's so bad. Like
It's embarrassing.
I don't I don't even know what to say half the time. You know, we get on these apps every day, and you and I are supposed to disseminate the news to
Yeah.
people. And every time I see a headline anymore, I'm like triple taking it with my like just like blinking to all hell. I'm like, what am I looking at right now? How am I
No.
going to go talk to people and explain what the hell is happening here? I don't even know what's happening here.
Exactly. No, it's true. I mean, I feel like I'm on a funny farm or something. It's just sometimes it's just a wild ride, you guys. And this week was just another one of those weeks. And just to add to what you've been sharing, Desmond, and I couldn't agree more with your sentiment and what Salazar. So you guys, before we went live, Desmond played me the clip of her talking about this on the Fox Business news show, and it was astounding to me just how the audacity of it all. Like she was just so
Nonchalant.
nonchalant. It was like, yeah, like we're getting that oil. Like that's what we're here for. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I think what adds insult to injury for me with all of this is we aren't approaching the cliff of climate change. Like we're hanging off of the side of it, and it's like our pinkies are the last little things holding on. And the fact that they want to spend time and money invading a nation, which, by the way, we know war brings a huge amount of environmental disaster along with it. But then to go in there for fossil fuels is so astounding to me. I mean, obviously, we know this is the same administration that's now drilling in land that was, off limits previously, but
Yeah.
and rolling back EPA protections. We know all this, but I guess I'm still at the end of the day like, wow, this really is who we are. Like I think I
Yeah.
haven't internalized it or accepted it because I keep waiting for us to be shaken awake from this whole experience. But it's like these old, rich white men are killing us. And what do they care? They got a few years left. They want to get all that money in the bank that they can to pass on to have their little dynasties, which is also so like gross. So this whole idea that we have these lower age limits to running for office and winning offices, but there's no upper age limit. This to me is another reason we should be doing this, because if you are still telling us that we need to pursue a nation for its fossil fuel reserve, you need to be removed from office, because this to me is a crime against humanity if you are trying to invade a nation for oil, period. On every level, on every level.
It would be nice if our system actually allowed for representatives to be recalled,
Mhm.
just recall a politician,
Yeah.
like how they do in California for the governor. Sometimes we could see that for members of Congress, because
Yep.
how could someone just say that and get away with it? It's unconscionable to me. But also, the thing I also want to talk about here, which we haven't mentioned yet in this conversation, no, we
Mhm.
mentioned it in previous conversations, is the
Mhm.
impact it's going to have on the people of Venezuela.
Yes.
How many people are going to die? How many
Yes.
people are going to have their entire livelihoods destroyed, their homes destroyed, everything that they've ever known? I mean, Iraq is completely decimated 20
Yeah.
years later.
Yeah.
Afghanistan never recovered. I
No.
mean, it took decades for Vietnam to get some kind of normalcy back to it. Libya hasn't recovered from what we did to them
Mhm.
under Barack Obama. It's like,
Mhm.
so like when
Mhm.
we go into a place like this, it's going to destabilize not just them, but everyone around them for years, because how many people will leave Venezuela and flee to other countries? We're just going to increase our immigration problem here all over again when tens of millions of people have to go flooding up. So it's such a compounding problem. And I haven't even gotten to the point yet talking about the Americans who will die,
Yeah.
or the Americans who will come home with PTSD or limbs
Missing
chopped
limbs.
off, and
Mhm.
just like all of this to make sure that billionaires make more money. Like, that is really all this comes down to. And I am just sick at all the people in our, honestly, all the people in our country who don't recognize this for what it is. They want to get Trump tattoos on their cells and ride around with Trump flags and Trump hats. And it's just like, you honestly have never taken a single second of legitimate criticism towards this man, because what we are seeing here is legitimately evil. And people laugh it off like he's just owning the libs.
I don't even know what that means at this point. Like, what does that mean? And, to your point, you must have been, you're reading my mind tonight, because I also started thinking about the climate refugees that are going to emerge out of this crisis from the global south, not just because of what could happen if we invade and the havoc that it'll reap
Yeah.
onto the community of Venezuela, but also to the climate. But when we're looking at the reality of the climate disaster that we are in, yes, we are going to see huge swaths of migration moving upward. And when we're putting this fascist hand pressing down on them with ICE and the Guard and everyone else, I just don't understand what's going to happen. And I just feel like this is a moment where we need bold, radical leadership that is compassionate and full of common sense. And we're not seeing any of that. And so I hope as we move forward, and I do believe in someday there we will be beyond this nightmare, and we will have to think to ourselves, what do we want for this nation and for ourselves and for our children and for our neighbors? And that's going to be where I feel my grandmother's words, where she used to say to me when we would talk about Hitler and what they lived through during World War II, and I said to her, how did you make it through that experience and still come out this positive and this good? And she said, when you know the pendulum swings this way, you know it's going to swing back. And I hold on to that sentiment that we've swung so far one way. The only way that's going to swing back as hard is hopefully we're going to get universal health care and all the other things that we need on the other side of this. And that's the only thing that kind of keeps me going, to be honest with you.
It took FDR 4 terms
Yeah.
to put that together. I don't know how it would happen anymore. all of the back and forthness that happens in Washington, the filibuster, all the different ways they can kill bills. I mean, like, I don't want to be too pessimistic right now, but it just feels like there are so many different ways in which the rich have kind of found ways to stifle any kind
Hmm.
of real opposition to them through the different changes in the legislative branch.
Yeah.
And so I just hope that the people will demand more from the politicians. There's going to be so many politicians that pop up over the next couple of years who are going to
Hmm.
talk to you about how they need to be put into office. And I agree that Republicans need to be removed out of office. So I hope that we are putting the right Democrats into office because we can't just send any Democrat in there because the status
No.
quo will be maintained. You know, we need the system to be overhauled. Donald Trump has exposed so many different weaknesses in our system. I mean,
Hmm.
so many different things he's been able to get away with that he can't be charged for. That cannot continue to exist once he's gone. Like, we need to truly overhaul the entire system, or else someone
Hmm.
else can just come in there and do a more efficient job than he's doing right now. Because thankfully for us, he's still a moron.
Yes.
I
100%. I
I
was,
could only imagine an actually competent Republican having the same like power and ideals that Trump has, but the willingness to execute them even further.
yes.
So I mean, like the necessity to overhaul this system and being able to stop the president from, gutting the EPA and gutting the CDC and being able to deploy troops on the streets and all, being able to commit crimes in broad daylight and not being held accountable for them, being able to defy judges' orders and literally nothing happens about it. Like that cannot continue. Like if that continues, then how are people going to have any faith in our government going forward?
They won't. They won't, period. And I was looking off camera while you were talking because when you were speaking about what would need to change, and I was thinking about what I said earlier about the socially liberal, fiscally conservative person. Like
Yeah.
we can't replace the Republicans with those people either. And I was looking up Martin Luther King Jr. because he talked about the rejection of negative peace, and he argued against the white moderates' desire for a tranquil society without actively addressing injustice, which he saw as a way to delay progress. And I think that's what we've seen from the Democratic establishment for the past 30 years is trying to placate and play nice and this polite politics BS while everything's on fire around them. But, there's this decorum that we have to uphold that has basically led us down the jaws of fascism. And so the white moderate, there's no place for them in our new political system that we need to build moving forward either. We need people that truly can meet the moment, and that's just the reality of it.
True. The very last thing I will say about this is that over the next couple of years, you are going to see a relentless like, attack within the Democratic Party,
Yes.
where establishment Democrats are going to consistently paint these more progressive Democrats as radical, not the future of the party,
Yep.
extremists, so on and so forth, because they do realize that their era of ineffectual politics is being threatened right now. And they want to paint everybody who's saying, like, we need universal health care and we need actual climate change reform and that we need to actually challenge the billionaires. They want those people desperately to be seen as a threat because they view them as a threat to themselves.
That's right.
And I just hope that people will see through those lies as time goes on. See the people who are actually challenging power right now and the people who are
Mhm.
not. And please, decide for yourselves because we need to get some of these people out of office. It's not just about defeating the fascists in the Republican Party. It's also about defeating weak Democrats that are enabling fascism to exist in the first place.
Amen to that. Everybody, thanks so much for being a part of our show tonight. Okay, as we wrap this up, because we're heading into a holiday, we have to have some levity here at the end of this a little bit, and and I've been trying to decompress in the evening by watching like some of my old favorite movies or just movies I hadn't seen in a while or have never seen.
Okay.
And I know, Desmond, you've been kind of doing the same. So maybe we can share a little bit about what we've been watching lately.
Oh man, what was the last thing that I told you I was watching? Do you remember?
No, but I saw you posted something on your social media. Was it with Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, so I'm a little behind on that profile. So I
Yeah.
think did I tell you about watching The Pianist?
So I feel like you brought it up. I don't know how much we actually talked about it, so feel free.
Okay, okay. I'll let you go first here because I got to figure out where I was the last time we spoke. But
It's okay.
what was you said that you had to watch like oh it was like a rom com that didn't hold up?
Okay, so I've been doing this thing, you guys. My husband works like a couple of nights a week, and so at the end of the day, after I've finished working and I've had it. I've been trying to watch like old rom coms that I don't think he'll be interested because we watch a lot of TV together, him and I, or we have our
Yeah.
shows. But I'm always like, okay, I'll watch something that I don't think he'll really want to watch. And so I was like, "Oh, I haven't watched Notting Hill since I was a kid, like probably since like ninth grade." So this was a film with
Okay.
Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, and it's from I think 1999, and it takes place in London, and Hugh Grant is just this average Joe, and he owns a little bookstore, and it's a travel bookstore, and he's got all these quirky friends and neighbors, and it's like that.
Yeah.
And then Julia Roberts is the movie star. Like she is the most famous, most beautiful movie star in the whole world. And she walks into his bookshop one day and
Yeah.
they have this like little interlude and then she leaves and then through a series of events um it's he decides to go out to grab his friend coffee that works at the shop and he's carrying a coffee and they bump right into each other and the coffee spills all over her and this was right after they met at the bookshop and of course, he's so embarrassed. And so
Yeah.
he says to her, "Do you want to come to my house and change your clothes and use my washer and dryer?" And I'm thinking like a woman of 2025, like, don't go in there. He's going to kill you. But of course, because this is 1999 and the height of the rom-com meet cute era, she goes and she's like, "Yeah, sure. I'm the biggest movie star in the world. Of course I'll go to this random guy that owns a bookshop, his place." So anyway, she goes to his house to change and, you know, hijinks ensue from there and they keep continuing this on and off again, romance, relationship. But I got to tell you, it just did not hold up for me at all. I was like,
Oh,
why is this funny? Like like why did people like this? And then it's very slow paced. There's actually some very dark parts, kind of depressing that don't really make sense. The best part of it was sort of his quirky friends and family members that added a little bit of color and zest. But it was the era of the Russell Brand skinny British jerk that can get away with crude, lewd, and misogynistic behavior. So in the show movie, Hugh Grant, who's been he's divorced and left his wife left him, and it was all very tragic. He has this flatmate who is this like I think his name's Benny or something. He's this gross, scrawny, skinny guy that walks around in his underwear and scratches his butt and like talks about sex all the time and eats yogurt or he thinks it's yogurt but it's mayonnaise so he's eating it anyway like just that no I'm serious that's an actual scene so and it just made me laugh because I'm like wow like none of this translates today like these dudes are not funny today how did these kind because this was such a time where this kind of character actor that's all that it was. It was the
right.
straight laced guy and then this creepy weirdo that was oversexed and scrawny and gross and bad teeth and like it was just like the whole thing. And so
Yeah.
anyway, I digress, but it was just one of those you can't go home again kind of movies. Like I think I probably watched it when I was 14 and was like, "Oh
Yeah.
wow, I want to be in love. Love is great," and then you watch it and you're just like, wow, I would have told this woman to run away at so many points. And in Hugh Grant's defense, he is such a doormat in this movie, and Julia Roberts is so awful to him. I was just like, this is a bad woman. Like, I if I was his friend, I would have said, you deserve so much better than her. She is mean to you and
Yeah.
disrespectful and walks all over you. But Desmond, but of course I had to watch the whole thing because, once you're in,
No,
like you have
once you're
to.
in, you're all the way in.
You're all the way in. Yeah. But the soundtrack was my favorite part. That brought back a lot
Okay.
of great memories. The late 90s was a great time for
What
music.
scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, I would have to give it maybe like a 3.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Appropriate
pacing
appropriate rating.
The pacing was poor. You never even really know why they like each other.
You gotta love it. You
You
gotta love it.
love it.
You know what? People tell me that I'm too harsh on movies. I feel like you're starting to catch the criticism bug a little bit, though, because some movies are just bad.
Some movies are just
Are just
bad.
bad. They're just bad. Like people try to sell you on how they're funny or how they're great or so on and so forth, but like some movies are just bad, and I don't want
I'm
to hear it.
I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy telling her how much she loves. I mean, that was a real line in the movie, and I'm like, what's happening here, everybody? As I'm eating my little ice cream watching it, my fuzzy robe. It was a whole scene. So yeah, there we are.
Uh,
What about you? What about you? Now that I've given you some time to mull.
I've watched 5 movies since we last saw each
Oh
other.
my gosh. Okay.
Um, a couple just like toss overs, like just I watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid,
Okay.
wasn't super impressed.
Okay.
I watched
I
a movie
love that
called
movie.
I watched a movie called Spy Game, wasn't super impressed.
Mm-mm.
It was kind of I did watch Argo last night. That was pretty good.
I love Argo. Mm-hmm.
I will save criticisms and thoughts about it though. I watched A Few Good Men. Also
Mm.
liked that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't seen it before. That was my first time seeing that. I'm going to tell you about the movie I didn't like.
Oh, good.
Of course, right?
Buckle in, everybody.
Movie number 5
Mm.
had huge critical acclaim. Huge critical acclaim. Was the main actor is actually a very, very famous actor, and I think he was actually the best part of this movie. The director is a really well-known director by the name of Martin Scorsese,
Oh.
and
Oh, wait.
the
I think
movie
I might know what this is.
this is Taxi Driver.
Oh, no, it wasn't the one I was thinking. I've never seen Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver came out in 1976, stars
Mm-hmm.
Robert De Niro. This was like in the very beginning of his fame. And this is like Martin Scorsese's big movie that like got him like known by everyone. It has over 1 million ratings on IMDb. It has like an average score of like 8.3. Everyone loves this movie. This movie is dog shit. It's so bad. It was so bad. I
My
can't.
husband hates this movie too, so you guys are in good company.
I cannot. The whole time, because I always look at the ratings beforehand. I'm like, all right, people think this is a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
People think this is an okay
Mm.
movie, so on and so forth. Knowing that this won Oscars and that it has so much critical acclaim was blowing my mind the entire way through. They they never the pacing is horrendous. They never tell you what this character likes, what he's
Mm.
actually after, like why any of these scenes are happening. He's just randomly stalking some woman for reasons that they never explain. He tries to take her out on a date. He takes her to a porno theater. She rightly gets upset and like leaves him, and then he
Okay.
continues to stalk her afterwards and like show up at her place of work and harass her and things like that. She's like someone who's like working in a campaign for someone running for president, and because he like felt like slighted by her, he tries to assassinate this guy. I mean, like it's so odd. Like the
Hmm.
music is like also heralded in the movie, but the soundtrack is so random; it's all over the place. Like Scorsese just has like random moments where harps are playing or xylophones are playing,
Oh my God.
and like, there's just nothing happening in the scene. It's just a dude walking down a street. I couldn't get over how bad all this was. They have Jodie
Oh.
Foster in the movie as a 12-year-old, and she's playing a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I don't care if it's 1976. You are literally having a 12-year-old prostitute in your movie, Martin Scorsese. Why did you write this into your movie? You wrote this movie.
That's
Like,
right.
what are we doing here? And so like, and some of the dialogue around that too, about talking about this 12-year-old prostitute. I couldn't get over it. Like, legitimately, by the time it was over, I was considering whether or not it was worse than Get Out. Uh,
Ooh.
it
Ooh.
was
We
so
know you didn't like that movie.
so bad. The only thing good about it, I will say, is that Robert De Niro, he did exactly what he was asked to do. He was asked to play a
Hmm.
very deranged man, and he played a very deranged man really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only saving grace of this movie. Otherwise, it is a complete shit show with scenes that make no sense, writing that makes no sense, random like montages that do nothing for the movie, music that makes no sense for the movie. It's all bad. Why people think it's a classic, I will never know, but put it on your never watch if you don't have to list.
Done. Thank you.
So, so
Oh my.
passing
Okay, so what rating did we give it out of 10?
2 out of 10.
Woo!
10 just for De Niro's acting. That's it.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, join us for more.
A Few Good Men and Argo were good movies.
Yes.
Legitimately, they were good movies. I enjoyed
Yes.
them. I will not give you my reviews on them today, but I thought that I left both those movies feeling like that was a really good movie. Thank you for that.
There you go. Well, if there's
Yeah,
something redeemable at the
yeah.
end of the
No,
day, there you
gave
go.
them both sevens. They were strong movies.
I love that. Well, we'll
Yeah,
have to learn more about those ratings and your system next time we
system
connect.
another time. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everyone who is still watching. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to both of us at the top of the screen there where it says our names kind of like flashing over in a little ticker style. You can subscribe to both of us that way. Uh, Playbacks for these episodes will be on YouTube and Spotify in the future. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for hanging out with us today, and I hope that everyone is having a good holiday.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, everybody, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.